Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. It is OCD Awareness Week. OCD is hands down one of the most painful things I have experienced in my life. It absolutely destroyed my life up until age 21, 22. I'm 23 now, so woohoo, recovery story. But no, it absolutely destroyed me, and this video is really important for me to make because if I can help just one person who's going through OCD, or help someone understand their loved one with OCD better, then I really want to do that, and that is the whole reason why I make videos. And so in this video I want to share some statistics with you about OCD, because I really think we need to end once and for all the stigma around OCD, the stigma around all mental illness. But since this is OCD Awareness Week, that's what I'm focusing on. OCD is not a joke. OCD is really serious. Of course, OCD can range from mild to moderate to severe, but it can absolutely be debilitating and life-threatening. Everything I say in this video is mostly done from my research, and I'll also be speaking from personal experience. It's said that around 2% of the world's population has OCD. In studies, the rates of OCD were found to be higher in women, ranging at 1.8% in women and 0.5% in men. Personally, I would like to interject here and say I think that OCD is one of those things that goes more undiagnosed in men because of, number one, the stigma of men suffering with mental health issues, and because it is harder for men to open up about mental health issues because, you know, all these old views and traditions of men have to be strong and they can't cry and all of that bullshit. I believe that it's not only that makes it harder for men to talk about OCD, but also themes such as POCD can absolutely make it hard for anyone, but especially men, because, you know, when you think of usually a woman is not the person that would pop in most people's minds, right? And so I think men probably have a bigger fear around being seen as predators. So that's just my little input on that. Now, I did say in the beginning that OCD can range from mild to moderate to severe. That being said, OCD is classed as one of the most debilitating mental illnesses due to the fact that only about 15% of people with OCD in studies have said that their symptoms are mild. So that's 85% of people bordering into the moderate to severe, with a big 50% of people saying that OCD causes them severe impairment in their life. And that was the case for me. Aren't I a lucky one? What is OCD? I probably should have started the video off with that. I thought I'd just capture you with some statistics because that works better sometimes. I want you to listen, because this is important. OCD is a psychiatric disorder in which a person experiences excessive, unwanted, repetitive, intrusive thoughts or urges or feelings. Intrusive thoughts play a big part in having OCD. That being said, I'm just going to play you guys a small clip from my TikTok that explains the difference between intrusive thoughts and having OCD, because very often people say, oh, I get intrusive thoughts, that means I have OCD. And so it's better to clear that up, because yes, everyone in the world can get intrusive thoughts, but they are a symptom of mental illness, and in OCD they just happen to be one of the biggest contributors to the disorder.
What's the difference between intrusive thoughts and OCD? Intrusive thoughts are very common. Anyone can have intrusive thoughts. It's when they start to disturb your life that it starts to maybe be a sign of something else. They're also present in disorders such as anxiety disorders, PTSD, BPD, ADHD, I could go on. First of all, let's establish the OCD cycle. It goes: unwanted thought, physical sensation or urge leads to anxiety, leads to compulsion, and then temporary relief, then this cycle repeats again and again and again and again and again, because that's OCD for you. I have to say that OCD that's physicalized is much easier to identify as OCD. So if your compulsions are physical, that is much easier to identify. Now let's talk about pure O, because I think this is where people are getting confused. Like, is it intrusive thoughts or is it pure O? Pure O is a type of OCD where people experience very frequent and distressing intrusive thoughts, and there are no obvious compulsions. What I mean by that is someone with pure O also has compulsions. They are just much less obvious. Avoidance is a compulsion. So for example, if you have harm OCD, avoiding sharp objects is a compulsion. Rumination is a compulsion, trying to figure out if you really are this bad person that OCD is telling you that you are. Saying prayers in your head or mentally apologizing for the horrible thoughts is a compulsion. Trying to override the horrible thoughts with something else, like a song, that's a compulsion. Singing out loud, obviously. Making noises, trying to shake the thoughts out. They're all compulsions, but they might be less obvious than your stereotypical OCD. Intrusive thoughts for someone that doesn't have OCD can just come and go, but for someone with OCD, it's the frequency, the obsessional factor, and the compulsions, the whole OCD cycle.
In order to be diagnosed with OCD, a person must spend at least 1 hour a day stuck in their obsessions and compulsions. So OCD must take up at least 1 hour of your day. For a lot of people with OCD, they spend way more than that. Someone could spend up to 10 hours. OCD really is that bitch, that clingy bitch that won't leave you alone. May I add in from personal experience, the reason why I think OCD is so absolutely painful is because it's so hidden and you're basically suffering in plain sight. It can attack you at any time. When you're in a conversation with someone, you can get attacked by all these intrusive thoughts. You could even be performing a compulsion and the other person would never notice it because you do it so sneakily, and you're just a slave to your OCD. You're just OCD's bitch, really. Around 36% of people with OCD have reported experiencing suicidal thoughts. Around 11% report to have attempted suicide. Suicide is obviously devastating, and when it doesn't end in death, it can end in really serious health complications for the rest of someone's life. It's important to note that not that many studies have actually been done on OCD and suicidality in particular, and I definitely believe that a lot of people with OCD don't come forward about it, especially those of us experiencing the more stigmatized themes of OCD, such as POCD, and I definitely believe that a lot of people have taken their life in silence due to that and due to the shame that surrounds it. Did you know that around 76% of people with OCD experience another anxiety disorder? Now, OCD is not actually an anxiety disorder. It used to be classified as one, but it's actually in its own category in the DSM. But yes, most of us do tend to have another anxiety disorder, such as major phobia, PTSD, or panic disorder. Where does OCD come from? Research shows that it's a mixture of genetic, environmental, and neurological factors. When someone's OCD starts in childhood, it's much more likely that there's a genetic link. But when someone's OCD comes later on, research has shown that a genetic link is less likely to be the reason. I also want to address the fact that OCD can come from pandas. This is pandas. So it's usually seen and diagnosed in children, but there are instances where it can also happen later in life, but that's not your standard OCD. And with that kind of OCD, it tends to improve as the infection is treated, the strep infection. Now, before I throw a few more statistics at you, I'd like to talk about types of OCD. I've talked about different types that I've struggled with on my channel, and you can have a look through my videos to see that. I'm not going to talk in depth about every type, but I do kind of want to outline the stereotypes and then the less talked about types of OCD. So some types of OCD that you may know are contamination OCD, harm OCD, just right OCD, where you feel like you have to put things just right. Symmetry OCD, where you feel like you have to do things evenly on your body. So if you've done something 3 times with this hand, then you have to do it 3 times with this hand, or if you've stepped in a certain way on this foot, then you have to step in a certain way with the other foot. So those are kind of your more known about OCDs. Even though harm OCD is part of pure O, it is quite known about. Then we have your less spoken about themes, which are...
Here's an extensive list of more types of OCD. If you want to find out what they are, you can research them, but I didn't want to make this video too long. Also, there isn't that much information out there about people-centered obsessions, but I have made videos about that on my channel.
I want to say that even though we have these set types of OCD, there is no rule about what OCD can be about. It can be about absolutely anything. My OCD has latched onto the weirdest things before. I had a cannibalism theme where I kept getting intrusive thoughts about being a cannibal and that I was a cannibal. So OCD will make you believe almost anything and everything. So let's just set the record straight once and for all. OCD can be about anything. Now, before I take you back into some statistics about OCD recovery, I would like to read to you from a post of one of my absolute favorite OCD creators. She's a therapist. She has an Instagram called Obsessively Ever After, and honestly, her posts have helped so much in my OCD recovery. I want to read to you a post that she did about OCD and trauma. Having OCD for me has been an extremely traumatic thing, and I really resonated with what she said in her post. Living with OCD can be traumatic. The people that gatekeep the word trauma and deny this reality shows a fundamental lack of understanding of the experience of living with such a haunting disorder as OCD. Perfect word there, haunting. Living with a brain that feeds you with terrifying, intrusive thoughts and images, like you stabbing a loved one or sexually intrusive image of your kid, can be traumatic. Seeing that repetitively on and on and on and on and on in your own mind is a nightmare you can't escape from. Experiencing intrusive urges so opposite to what you'd ever want to do can be traumatic. How real the thoughts, images, urges can feel can be traumatic, even when you logically know you despise them. Logic does nothing for OCD. Sadly, compulsions like sex as a checking mechanism or self-harm and self-punishment can be traumatic. Living in a state of suicidality because death would be an escape can be traumatic. Living in a fear of your own brain and what it's capable of is definitely traumatic. OCD is not something that can be cured. There is no research that shows that. There are some people that say they had OCD and they no longer suffer from it. There aren't a lot of cases like that. For me, OCD has been a case of managing my condition. So right now I would say that I don't fit the criteria for OCD. And if I were to be assessed, would I be diagnosed? No, but am I taking medication to manage it? And if I stop taking my medication, would my OCD flare up? I think so. So I personally believe, and a lot of professionals like to look at it this way as well, that OCD is something that can be managed to an amazing extent. Like any chronic condition, it can have its flare-ups. So yeah, I would say my OCD is in remission, and that is what remission means. I have to say, throughout my treatment, there were massive ups and downs, and I had massive relapses where I was like, oh my god, is it even worth it? I'm never gonna get rid of this. But accepting that you might not ever get rid of it is part of getting rid of it. Well, getting better. So right now, even though my OCD is in remission, I fully accept the fact that I could have a flare-up anytime. So am I living as someone who absolutely does not have OCD and never had OCD? No, because I had OCD. It's just like any other condition that is chronic and you manage. Yeah, I can't live as someone who doesn't have OCD. I have to do things on the daily to manage the OCD tendencies that are there. And if I do get intrusive thoughts bordering on telling me to do compulsions, I have to treat it in the way as I've learnt in ERP therapy. So it definitely is a case of management. And sometimes I get flare-ups, but on a day-to-day basis, if I get a flare-up, it won't last more than a couple of minutes maximum, and that is incredible. Whereas before, my OCD would take up my whole day. Hours, days, nights. And before, when I had flare-ups, it would just be full. I would be hours into ruminating, doing compulsions, and that doesn't happen anymore. But I accept the fact that shit, I might even have a bad flare-up, but that doesn't mean that I can't recover and kick its butt into remission again. But I'm really happy to be where I'm at. Out of all therapies, ERP therapy has proven to be the most effective for OCD. It is the gold standard treatment for OCD. It has a success rate of between 65% to 80%. And if it wasn't for ERP therapy, I definitely would not be where I am now. Looking at that success rate, yes, ERP was successful for me, but it didn't completely help put my OCD into remission. Now, the mix of ERP therapy and medication has helped me do that. So guys, there's hope out there, okay? There's medication, there's therapy, there are more types of therapy, but please make sure you are not doing purely CBT therapy. And this is just coming from me and from probably most professionals out there. CBT alone is not effective in treating OCD. So if someone tells you that you just need CBT and it's fine and you don't need to do exposure, it's a lie. It's a lie.
Can I lie? Can I fucking lie?
Thank you so much for listening to me talk about OCD for OCD Awareness Week. There is hope out there and there is treatment, and if you're struggling with OCD, you're not alone. And trust me, it will not be this way forever. However hard it is, it's not going to be like that forever. If you have a loved one with OCD, I really, really recommend that you research and read up on it and just support the person as best as you can. There are great resources, and I will put up some resources on the screen for those of you with OCD, and I'll also put up some resources for those that have loved ones with OCD if you want to find out more about what you can do and things like that. Please like this video, share this video with someone you think needs to see it, hear it, learn more about OCD. Subscribe to me.